My fiancée messaged me, saying she wouldn't wed a penniless guy. Either improve your situation or she's out. I responded, understood. Then I improved my own life by walking away from her. 2.5 days passed before her folks were eager to restart talks. A 30-year-old guy, was in a conference, the type where you mentally plan your shopping list while pretending to pay close attention, when my phone vibrated. It was my fiancée, Isabel. I grinned, anticipating a query about supper or an image of an outrageously expensive wedding dessert. But no, it was a notice. Sitting here reviewing the costs for the location. It's not adding up. The lifestyle we're aiming for, the ceremony you assured, it's falling short. I won't tie the knot with a poor guy. Either step up or I'm leaving. I gazed at the display. My finger lingered over the keys. It wasn't a plea for assistance. It wasn't a call for discussion. It was a business order. A demand cloaked in the stark, unyielding wrapper of deal-making. Something within me didn't break. It aligned like a cog falling into position. The hazy affection I'd confused for romance dissipated, revealing a sharp, clear insight. All the minor details, the understated demands, abruptly came into sharp view. Her parents, Marcus and Eleanor, describing our upcoming life as an investment collection. Her sibling, Julian, inquiring about my long-term strategy with the fervor of an investor grilling a new business owner. Isabel's offhand demand for luxury necessities while I covered most of our housing and expenses. I wasn't a companion. I was an asset, and my value was declining. My hands, operating with an unfamiliar steadiness, composed a response. Me acknowledged. Then I set my device to quiet, tucked it away, and returned to the third quarter forecasts. The remainder of the workday flew by in a haze of bizarre concentration. I wasn't frantic. I wasn't even obviously furious. I was a coordinator dealing with a vital operational breakdown, and my sole task was to handle the consequences. That night, I didn't head back to the place Isabel and I cohabited. A residence, I must point out, where only my signature was on the rental contract. Instead, I headed to an inexpensive, tidy lodge, the sort with rough linens and dubious decor. I perched on the side of the firm mattress and started my personal enhancement. I accessed our joint financial profile. It was meant for marriage costs. But recently, her removals for payments on items I'd never encountered had grown more audacious. I moved precisely half of the leftover amount to my individual profile and shut down the shared entry. I altered the codes on all video platforms, our online shopping site, the works. It was a virtual separation, completed in less than a quarter hour. I contacted an around-the-clock relocation company and scheduled them for early morning the next day. Then I messaged the property overseers of my dwelling. I notified them that my fiancée had departed and I planned to replace the locks tomorrow, as allowed by the rental terms. I included a capture of her message. No explanation, just the phrase, either step up or I'm leaving. It seemed practical. This was the toughest segment. I remained in that bland lodge space and allowed the quiet to envelop me. The discomfort was present, a subtle, muted throb near my chest. But it wasn't the agony of lost love. It was the burn of disloyalty, the shame of understanding I'd been so profoundly misunderstood, so utterly underestimated. They didn't perceive me. They viewed an entry in a financial ledger. Okay, I would behave in kind. The following day, the relocators and I cleared the dwelling in a couple of hours. I grabbed my garments, my volumes, my ancestors' vintage workstation, and the screen. I abandoned for her the furnishings we'd acquired jointly, the pile of outfits she cherished, and the advanced brewing device I'd presented her for her celebration. A sign of benevolence. Or perhaps I simply didn't wish to recall the countless dawns I'd prepared her brew as she browsed social feeds. By midday, my belongings were in a secure storage, and I was registered at a long-term inn. The calls began around mid-afternoon. Isabel. I disregarded it. Then the messages arrived. Where are you? My access isn't functioning. Leo, this isn't amusing. Did you alter the streaming code? For real? I didn't answer. I was occupied establishing a fresh financial profile. The 60-hour point struck on a weekend night. My device rang. It was an unfamiliar contact. I allowed it to voicemail. Shortly after, a note appeared. It was from her mom, Eleanor. Eleanor, Leo, this has dragged on sufficiently. Your minor outburst has been observed. Marcus and I are ready to facilitate. Let's resume discussions. Resume discussions. My fingers yearned to compose something biting, something laced with the rage I was systematically containing. Instead, I inhaled deeply, embodied my internal coordinator, and answered. Me? Nothing to discuss. The collaboration is ended. Yes. Shortly after, her dad Marcus phoned. This time I picked up. Leo, he stated, his tone a deep rumble of patronizing control. You're halting this foolishness immediately. You've proven your stance. Now you'll come here. Express regret to Isabel for this immature spectacle, and we can proceed beyond it. I reclined against the inn's bedrest. There appears to be a confusion, Marcus. I'm not exhibiting anything. I'm responding to my ex-fiancée's documented order. She ended our pact. I agreed. There was stammering from his side. That was an expression. A lady becomes sentimental. Isabel isn't an overwrought lady, I remarked, my tone perilously soft. She's a planner. You instilled that in her. She offered me a commercial proposal. I rejected the conditions. This is the outcome. Prolonged quiet. Then his tone lowered, shedding the bravado and acquiring a frigid sharpness. You possess items in that dwelling that are hers. Objects of considerable worth. Don't imagine for a moment we won't retrieve them. I nearly grinned. Any item you think is improperly with me can be handled via proper judicial paths. Provide an inventory. I'll have my attorney examine it. I lack an attorney, but he didn't require that info. I disconnected before he could reply. The conflict wasn't concluded. They had merely forfeited the initial clash. I understood them. They wouldn't withdraw. They would reorganize, rethink, and initiate a complete offensive. And I would be prepared. Ultimately, I was enhancing. Update. The peace didn't endure. I'd misjudged their pace of action. I anticipated a 7 days, perhaps 14, of welcome quiet. Instead, I encountered Julian. Julian, Isabel's sibling, is the family's direct enforcer. While his folks employ disdain and control, Julian favors a straightforward method. He appeared at my temporary workspace midweek. He'd evidently informed the reception he was a messenger with an urgent paper needing my personal sign-off, a basic, successful deception that an occupied clerk wouldn't challenge. He didn't burst in. He sauntered. He rested against the entryway of my compact, transparent workspace, limbs folded, appearing less like a worried relative and more like a collector with a vocabulary. Leo, he uttered, inclining his head gradually. You're tough to locate. That's the goal, I answered, without glancing from my computer. Amusing. Hear me, Izzy is wrecked. You really impacted her. I paused inputting. I did. All I did was adhere to her directions. She established the rules. Improve or depart. I departed. That's it. He grinned maliciously, an unpleasant twist of his mouth. You believe you're smart, huh? Interpreting the message word for word. We recognize your game, attempting to act the injured party. Julian, I'm not gaming anything. I'm simply existing my existence. Independently, he detached from the entryway and advanced inward. Before he could continue, I grasped my device from the surface, navigated to the audio note program and activated recording. I placed the device upright between us, the crimson indicator plainly shown. In my area, provided the capture tool is visible, it's deemed public awareness. No concealment, no mysteries, just records. His gaze shifted to the device and he paused briefly. Here's the deal. He proceeded, his tone somewhat strained. You've got her commitment band. That band has belonged to our lineage for 3 eras. Mother is unhappy. She demands it returned now. Ah, the band. The band was a present dependent on matrimony, I stated evenly. The requirement is no longer fulfilled. Don't lecture statutes to me, you minor clerk. That band exceeds your vehicle's value. We can render this extremely disagreeable for you. Are you intimidating me? I inquired, my tone steady, my focus on my device. I'm suggesting to you, he remarked, his gaze tightening. Return the band. Provide Isabel her portion of the furnishings and express remorse openly for embarrassing her. Achieve that and perhaps we can facilitate the remaining separation smoothly. So that was their tactic. Not merely recovery of possessions, but a comprehensive image management to depict me as the antagonist. They weren't merely planners. They were historical rewriters. No, I declared plainly. His complexion reddened. No, the band is secured in a safe spot, awaiting a conclusive resolution of all mutual holdings and obligations. Regarding the furnishings, she can claim her share. She merely needs to cover the relocation expenses and I won't be expressing remorse for being abandoned through a message. Julian glared at me, then at my device, his mind apparently struggling to handle the absence of sentimental response. He eventually sneered. shook his head and exited, grumbling about me being detached. That night, I received correspondence from the overseer of my former dwelling. Isabel had submitted a grievance asserting I had unlawfully barred her and was retaining belongings, including unique legacies and work tools. The term unique legacies triggered a surge of frost through my body. A chilly fear started to emerge. I traveled to my storage facility. My ancestor's workstation rested beneath a thick cover. My limbs were quivering faintly for the initial occasion in 7 days. He'd revealed the concealed section to me as a child. Isabel had been intrigued by it when I demonstrated it to her one night. With a nauseating twist in my gut, I located the secret mechanism and accessed the tiny compartment. Vacant. My ancestor's timepiece was missing. The stark, unforgiving reality descended upon me. The pilfering hadn't simply occurred, it had been orchestrated. Prior to the relocator's arrival, before I had even assembled the initial container, she must have visited the workstation in our dwelling and seized it. She had executed a silent, deliberate removal of the single item she knew was my genuine, irreplaceable legacy. For an instant, perched on the chilly solid ground of that storage facility, the composed exterior fractured. The fury, intense and unfiltered, at last surged forth. They had confused my composure for frailty. They had mistaken my systematic method for an absence of zeal. They were mistaken. They desired a battle? All right, they were on the verge of receiving one. But I wasn't planning to engage on their conditions with yelling and coercion. I was going to contest it with proofs, records, and the gradual, relentless, exquisite mechanism of the framework they believed they could control. They considered me a penniless guy. They were about to discover exactly how expensive I could become. Final update. 30 days can seem like an eternity. The original astonishment had evolved into a firm, unyielding determination. The removal of my ancestor's timepiece was the pivotal moment. My enhancement wasn't solely about departing from Isabel, it was about rediscovering my personal worth. My retaliation had 3 arenas: judicial, administrative, and communal. The judicial arena, I didn't engage an attorney. I engaged a legal assistant to aid me in readying a minor disputes tribunal submission. It was less costly and for this equally potent. The action was for the price of the pilfered timepiece, the imaging device, the portable computer, and Isabel's portion of the concluding month's housing fee and services for the dwelling she had forsaken. The sum approached just below the minor disputes threshold. Submitting it resembled deploying a focused aerial attack. It was detached, accurate, and certain to arrive at their entrance with informal notice. The administrative arena. I countered the overseer's alert with my stack of proofs. I enclosed the proofs for the work tools and a certified declaration regarding the timepiece, indicating it was removed from our cohabited home before my relocation. The overseer, confronted with a possible judicial tangle, acted precisely as a cautious asset handler would. He deferred. He dispatched Isabel an official alert that, since she wasn't listed on the contract, any asset disputes were a private issue between us and she was barred from the premises. Her effort to employ him as a weapon had collapsed. Victory. The communal arena. This was the most subtle and eventually the most destructive arena. I didn't slander anyone. I didn't share indirect complaints. I merely conveyed the facts, serenely and without exaggeration, when questioned. Our common acquaintances would message, "Hey, learned the ceremony is cancelled. What occurred?" My answer was consistently identical. "Yes, it's unfortunate." Isabel messaged me stating she couldn't wed a man lacking financial improvement. I followed her suggestion and chose to enhance my existence by beginning anew. It was optimal. The pure, unaltered sincerity of it was stronger than any defamation effort. There was no counter to it because it stemmed from their own statements and behaviors. The tale began to circulate. The account they were attempting to construct of unfortunate, devastated Isabel and her harsh, unfeeling former partner disintegrated because the base was false. The response to the tribunal notice was swift and explosive. Marcus contacted me, furious. "A legal action? Are you serious? You're pursuing my child?" "I'm recovering pilfered items, Marcus," I stated, envisioning him striding in his wood-lined office. "It's a basic commercial exchange. You, above all, should grasp that. We will overwhelm you with judicial costs. We will respond with claims for slander, for psychological harm." "Proceed," I remarked, and for the first occasion I permitted a trace of amusement in my tone. "The evidence gathering will be intriguing. I've preserved all the messages." "Have you?" The connection terminated. The tribunal session came. I attired in a basic outfit. I possessed a solitary, arranged binder with my proofs. They showed up as a group. Marcus, Eleanor, Isabel, and Julian. They appeared as if attending a confrontational executive session. Isabel avoided my gaze, her expression a facade of rehearsed suffering. When my opportunity arose, I outlined my argument plainly. Here is the contract. Here are the invoices. Here are the proofs for the portable computer and imaging device under my title. Here is an image of me donning my ancestor's timepiece at a kin gathering last year. And here is the message that initiated everything. I recited it to the arbiter, a weary-appearing lady who had evidently witnessed everything. I won't wed a penniless guy. Either improve or I'm out. When their chance came, Marcus dominated, contending that the objects were presents, that the message was an instance of sentimental exaggeration, and that I was a spiteful former partner attempting to coerce them. The arbiter peered over her lenses at Isabel. Miss Vaughn, did you remove the timepiece from the workstation? Isabel's gaze darted to her mom. It was a present. He said I could possess it. Is that accurate, sir? The arbiter questioned me. No, Your Honor. It belonged to my ancestor. It was invaluable to me. The arbiter exhaled. She examined the proofs, the message. She didn't require an investigator. The narrative was inscribed in their own arrogance. She decided for me on every point. They were instructed to restore the tools and compensate me the evaluated worth of the timepiece, plus the pending housing fee. Their loss was total and it was open. In the barren, harsh illumination of a tribunal, their tactics appeared precisely as they were. A tawdry, trivial extortion. Julian had to manually hold back Marcus from shouting at the arbiter. I departed without a statement. 7 days later, a messenger brought a package to my workspace. Within was the imaging device, the portable computer, and a payment for the timepiece and the housing fee. No message. I disposed of the band shortly after and applied the funds as an initial payment on a modest apartment in another section of the town. A genuine improvement. The most recent I learned, Isabel had relocated with her folks. Her emerging profession as an advisor dwindled without my monetary support for her necessities. Her standing with our previous acquaintances was ruined. Folks dislike opportunists, particularly when they're so overt. I received one last message from her, months afterward, near the early hours. It wasn't enraged or mournful. It was eerily calculated. A ultimate bid to reshape the truth. Learned you acquired an apartment, suppose my minor nudge succeeded after all. You ought to appreciate me. I perused it, and for the initial time, I sensed a spark of something that wasn't fury or discomfort. It was compassion. They would never comprehend. They would eternally be the protagonists of their narrative, the designers of my achievement, the sufferers of my irrational denial to fulfill my designated position. They had absorbed zero. I erased the message without answering. I had a fresh existence to construct, an investment set of my own to oversee, and the primary and sole entry in it was my personal tranquility. My value was rising.